So the second concept I want to teach you guys that you're going to see in grade 10 has to do with polynomials. So before you start watching this video, you've completed a polynomial question that helped you review some of the concepts from grade 9. Now this is how it expands into grade 10. So let's just review some things. So a polynomial consists of several terms. So if you take a look here, we talked about how if we have 3 terms, we call it a trinomial. If we had 2 terms, we called it a binomial. 1 term, we called it a monomial. So poly just means many. So it's many terms. So we're going to talk about factoring and expanding. So factoring is breaking up a polynomial into simpler terms, whereas expanding is doing the opposite of factoring, and we're going to multiply. In order to get a bigger or a longer expression. Okay, so factoring is making something smaller or simpler, whereas expanding is making something longer or more complex. Okay, always remember that we can relate polynomials to area, right? So this here is our, the red block here is our x squared block. This long rectangular block is our x block, whereas our 1 block is the little white one here. So if we were together, I would get you to do this activity. But if I wanted to make a rectangle out of these, I would do so by lining these up because these sides line up. And then I would put these little 4 blocks on the side. And I've designed a rectangle. Now, this rectangle, always remember that we can talk about polynomials in the form of area. So this rectangle has a side length of x. So if we just look at its side length, so this is x. This one here is also x. And we have a 1 block. So the side length here is x plus 1, which is 2x plus 1. So that's my one side length there. So that would be the length. And then if I talked about the width, well, my width is just, it's just a 1. So if I were to take, so it's 1, 2, 3, and 4 ones. So my width here is 4. So my area could be represented as 4 times, so because it's my length times my width, 4 times x, 2x plus 1. Now you guys know what you get when you multiply those to get my area. Well, if I multiply this in, I'm just going to get 8x plus 4. Well, isn't that how many blocks I had here? I had 8x blocks and 4 ones. So this here is factoring. Expanding is when I multiplied. So to do 2 examples with you, factor. So if I take a look at both these terms, 4x and 12, I know this is a binomial. So if I look at these 2 terms, what can I divide out of both of these terms? Because I want to factor something out. Well, if you take a look here, I know I can divide a 4 out of both of these terms. Okay, so if I divide a 4 out of both of these terms, I'm going to end up with 4. And what I am left with is, well, 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I'm left with 1x plus, well, 12 divided by 4 is 3. So when I factor out a 4, I put it on the outside of the bracket, and then what I'm left with goes inside the bracket. So if I were to expand this, and I go 4 times x, I'm going to get 4x. And if I go 4 times 3, I'm going to get 12. So I'm going to get the same answer I got originally. So that's how you factor. If I expand, which you guys are all very well aware of knowing how to expand, I just need to multiply 2 by m and 2 by 4. So in this case, I get 2 times m, which is 2m, and 2 times 4, which is 8. So that's expanding, and that is factoring. Okay? So if we did some other examples here, I'll just pick some random ones. Just zoom in. All right, 3x squared plus x. I can actually divide out an x from both of these. Okay, so I can divide out an x, And what I'm left with, so x goes on the outside of the brackets, and what I'm left with is, well, 3. X squared divided by x is just 1x, plus x divided by x is just 1. So that's how I would factor something like that. If I want to factor 2x squared minus 4x, well, first of all, I can easily see that I can divide out a 2 from both of these. But then what you're also going to notice is that I can also divide out an x because they both have a variable. Same variable, actually. So I'm going to divide out a 2x. Well, to do so, I end up with 2x on the outside of the brackets, and let's divide. Well, 2 divided by 2 is just 1, and x squared divided by x is just x, so I'm left with 1x minus 4 divided by 2 is 2, and x divided by x is just 1, and 1 times 2 is just 2. So that's how I would factor. And again, expanding is quite easy for you, where you would multiply your outside term to everything on the inside. So I would end up with 3y plus 15. Okay, and that's that.